love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you. Yes, I love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you. Yes, I love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you. Yes, I love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you. Oh, yes, I love her like you.
Chat, what's popping?
What's up, little bro?
You beat me to it this time. I was going to give you the same the same introduction, but you beat me to it this time. So I couldn't. I was trying to do the right thing. I was trying to do the right thing and acknowledge the chat first. But everybody don't move the same way.
What's going on with you?
What's happening? What's going on with you?
Chilling, as always, per usual.
For sure. For sure. I feel like I was just telling Terrence. I feel like y'all got a lot of content from us over the past like 3 weeks since camp has been back. I feel like we haven't stopped. We dropped a new episode this morning. If you haven't uh, if you haven't watched that yet, take the time out now to go watch that. Or you can just wait until after this show because I think that what we have lined up is going to be a little bit better, uh, more better time spent for the time being with our guest tonight. So super excited for that. I'll go ahead and introduce the podcast so we can get started. I know our guest has to hit the road soon. Welcome to For Panthers Fans Only, the live stream. If you haven't done so already, make sure to tap in with us on social media at For Panthers Fans Only on Instagram and TikTok at FPFO_podcast on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube right now, thank you so much for being here. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn the bell notification on. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to enter our FPFO road game experience. You and a plus one of your choosing have the ability or have the opportunity to win a trip with us over at For Panthers Fans Only down to New Orleans in November to watch the Carolina Panthers take on the New Orleans Saints. Flights, hotels, game tickets, all taken care of by us at FPFO. So if you haven't done so, go enter that right now. Also, if you haven't joined the Discord, the link is in the description down below. If you're watching on YouTube and if you're watching on X, head over to YouTube right now to get that information. Again, welcome to the show. I'm your host, JJ. Terrence, what's happening?
What's up? What's up? Welcome in, everyone. Thank you guys for being here once again. And hope this is a good show for you. Thank you for tuning in.
Most definitely, most definitely. We're not gonna waste a lot of time tonight. I told Terrence when we got on, I got like an hour to an hour and 15. Uh,
That's not what you said.
but what did I say? I'm sorry. My
You said
fault.
I have an
I'm
hour.
not trying to get in the line. I'm not trying to get in the line as soon as I get on. My bad. What did I
Well,
say?
you said, oh, I have an hour tonight. Maybe even that. So I mean, you already got on the starting line. So
Yeah, because I'll say that and then we'll end up going 90 to 120. But I'm gonna
not
try and
tonight.
push it. Okay, understood. Understood. Without further ado, I'm gonna introduce our guest. Tonight we have with us an award-winning sports anchor slash reporter with the Charlotte Sports Live on the Queen City Network. We are joined tonight by none other than Mr. Gabe McDonald. Round of applause, man.
What's up?
Gabe,
What's up?
Hey, what's up,
how,
y'all? Glad to be back with you guys again. I remember coming on during last year during camp and having a lot of fun with you guys talking some ball and just glad to be able to run it back, man. A lot of hype, obviously, going into this year, coming off last year, and been a solid training camp so far. Been seeing a lot of good action, and we'll see if we can continue. Finally, get to see some starters this weekend for at least a little bit, so at least something to look forward to up there in Buffalo. But appreciate you guys for having me tonight, man.
man, most
Yep,
definitely appreciate
for
you
sure.
being willing to join us tonight. Let's get right to it. They're saying that Bryce Young is having his best camp of his career. I am so ecstatic to have you on tonight because I know that you're honest. I know that you don't shy away from giving your opinion, and I know for the overwhelming majority of camp, um, you've been present. So tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in Bryce Young. Are the reports true? Are they accurate? Are we gearing up for a potential MVP run by Bryce Young this year or what?
MVP run might be a little far fetched, but we are seeing a lot of improvement out of him so far. Obviously this is third year in the system. With Brad taking over the play calling, and you're really seeing a lot more command out there, a lot more conviction. He's being able to he's obviously being tested out there. When you think about the secondary that the Panthers have, with J.C. Horn now getting a lot of reps in the nickel spot. You got the rookie Will Lee in, of course, Mike Jack. Arguably the best CB2 in the entire league. 36 pass breakups over the last 2 seasons, but you look at Bryce, what he's been able to do. Obviously, that trust with T Mac, it's there. We've seen a lot of plays, especially them capping off practice with a lot of big completions. He's also been able to find Jalen Coker a lot as well. And we know that connection that he has with John Mechie. Necessarily haven't really seen that a lot in 11 on 11 because Mechie isn't getting a lot of reps with the ones, but you are seeing that connection that they have. But you're seeing him really put it into a lot of tight windows. He's being able to extend a lot of plays too. Now, the offensive line has kind of been spotty when you're breaking in, Monroe Freeling on the right side. He's being tested by Jalen Phillips. You look at Rasheed Walker on the left. But I think so far with what he's been able to do, the command that he's showing, and just being able to kind of step up more as a leader. We also saw the viral video, back in OTAs when it was raining, him trying to snap the guys back into, locking in. I think you're seeing him take that next step vocally as well that we necessarily haven't seen over the last several years. But I think by all accounts, so far, he's having a really strong camp. I don't know if I'd say it his best camp so far. I mean, it's still, still got a little bit of ways to go, but I'd say it's probably the strongest that he's had, but it's kind of hard to say that it's, the best one that he's had so far. But it's been relatively strong, in my opinion, from what I've been able to see.
Okay, good. I'm glad you added that context. I'm glad because that's all I've been seeing. Oh, Bryce Young, best camp by far, best he's ever looked. Okay, thank you for the additional context, Terrence.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about. I seen you release the unofficial depth chart today, and I seen some of your main takeaways as far as Jimmy Horn being ahead of John Mechie, and then Trevin Wallace being in that position battle with Claude and Sherless. What do you think about? As I see a guy like AJ Dillon, who he's a veteran running back, obviously, and then you have a second year guy like Trevor Etienne, who has made some strides, but looking at it from a fan perspective in that game on Thursday, it looked like AJ Dillon had a little bit more pop, a little bit more juice than Trevor Etienne. And, AJ Dillon is still the fourth string running back behind a guy like Trevor Etienne. And if you look at the positions group, like tight end, for an example, obviously we didn't get to see Tommy Tremble play, but we seen Jatavion Sanders make a few plays earlier on in the game. So, and also Haynes King, still the third string quarterback behind the Kenny Pickett. I know it's an unofficial depth chart, but is there any insight you can give us into those particular things still staying the same way? Or is it a situation where it's like, you guys just chill, hold on, like these things may be subject to change, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think, what you were saying there towards the end, I think that kind of is, the main thing to look at too. Like this depth chart, we all know, guys, it's etched in sand right now. You still got 3 more preseason games to go. You never know, what can happen over these next several weeks, who can step up, who might fall back a little bit. But to your point about the running back spot, AJ Dillon, I think, should have a spot on this roster. When you think about the size that he has, the short yardage back, I know they say that they have Chuba for that, so to speak, but it's like you got to look at a guy that big. You see his quads are about this wide, bigger than my entire torso probably. You saw him have that burst, obviously getting that touchdown run there, even that catch and run that he had on that one route, down there in the red zone. I think that size and that combination of the size that he has and the power that he has, that's invaluable. That's something that this offense has been missing, that true power back for quite some time. And I think he's the guy that obviously you look at him being a veteran player. He can also help the guys in that room, especially a guy like a Jonathan Brooks who's still, acclimating to life in the NFL, now being finally healthy. I think a guy like AJ Dillon, should be around now. It just depends on, if Trevor maintains that, primary returner spot, which if you look on the depth chart, he still has that above Jimmy Horn. If he can still, correct the mistakes that he had last year, and if they still believe in him to be that primary return guy, then that could be his ticket to remaining on the roster. And it probably would leave AJ Dillon left off just when we think about crunching the numbers, wanting to have more receiver depth, wanting to have more offensive line depth, given the injuries there. So I think it really just comes down to if Trevor remains there as that primary returner. But I think if there's a case where Jimmy Horn is able to pass him, I think you would look at wanting to have AJ Dillon as that third running back. And then looking at the tight end spot, didn't see Mitchell Evans or Tommy there in the Hall of Fame game. Saw JT for a little bit as well. I think, he's in an interesting spot because you think about the injuries that he's had, towards kind of the back end of each of the last 2 years as well. And I think he's still a guy that you look at him going into last year, cut weight, got leaner. He thought it would, we all thought that it would work to his, just to his fortune, whether it's being used as a big slot or whatever. Didn't necessarily see that in the scheme last year. Maybe that's something that they could, have in, a wrinkle this year with Brad Isaac now kind of adding his own flair to it. But I think this team really believes in a guy like Mitchell Evans, being that complete tight end, kind of being able to do a little bit of what Tommy and JT both do well and kind of combining that in one guy. And he had an interesting quote the other day, too, about them really studying a lot of teams that run 13 personnel, like the Rams and certain other teams that have all of their tight ends. We saw it a lot in Baltimore, under Coach Harbaugh and what they do with having their tight ends. He said, he kind of had the ultimate mic drop. It's like when we get in 13, it can create a mismatch. We can block everybody and none of them can guard us. So that's something that there where you could see all of them kind of using the abilities that they have. But I thought that was an interesting one. It'll be interesting to see how JT kind of responds to that, if he even reads into it, and kind of see how he can bounce back there over the next few weeks. Because I think that tight end room is a pretty interesting one, because you would like to have one guy that can kind of do everything, but it seems like each of them kind of has this one, thing that they do well as their niche, so to speak.
Got you. I guess another question, not even on the topic of, I guess, the Hall of Fame game. With you being at training camp and being at the practices, is there one guy that you would say has surprised you or has made a leap, so to speak, that maybe like the fan base isn't really talking about as much? Is there one particular guy that stands out for you at all?
It's a bit of a cliche. Yeah.
Before you answer, I don't know if it's your mic or what. It's coming through kind of choppy, like on my end, Terrence. I don't know if you're hearing the same thing.
Yeah, it's a little choppy.
Okay,
gotcha. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, I appreciate and respect what you have to say. I want to make sure that the people are able to hear you clearly. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
no, for sure. Let me see. Let me try to work something out real quick.
Chat, let me know. Let me know. Are y'all hearing the same thing? I think it's coming
how does it sound now?
So a little bit better. A little bit better. I'll turn you up a little bit and see. Give me something.
You guys are just sound good. Check. 1 2 1 2.
Yes. There we go. That's better. I'm just gonna turn you up. I'm gonna turn you up a little bit, and we'll be back. My apologies for the interruption, because I like where y'all were going.
Want everything sounds smooth, man.
Sure.
And Terrence, you were talking about, just guys under the radar. I think really the guy that's really stood out to me is honestly somebody that's getting a lot of that talk, and it's got to be Jasim Reed, man. I mean, this guy, coming from San Diego, undrafted, was on the practice squad pretty much all last year. Honestly, going into this year, it didn't seem like guys towards the back end of that room would get a lot of buzz, because you had, obviously, Brazel and all the hype that he had coming out of Tennessee, and it seemed like, him being healthy, if he would have been healthy, it's unfortunate the injury that he had, but that kind of would have created even more of a logjam there towards the back of that receiver room. But I think, Jasim is a guy that this offense loves, even talking with, just certain guys on the staff as well. I mean, it's a guy that obviously puts in a lot of that work after practice, can really catch with his hands, run the entire route tree. Dave even said it himself. He's a guy that can play all three wide receiver positions. And that's, obviously invaluable in itself, being able to have a guy that can play outside and in the slot. I mean, just a really hard worker, man. We saw it on full display on Thursday night in the Hall of Fame game. And I think he's a guy that when, if he's given that opportunity to shine in the regular season, I think he's somebody that could really, surprise, not just, the coaching staff, but really the entire league. I mean, obviously you have T-Mac and Coker as well, but I think if he's given the opportunity to really shine and put his talents on full display against, starters and against, talented players, I think he can really, impress a lot of people. And I think he's a guy that really has a bright future, not just here in Carolina, but just here in general in the entire league for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it makes it tough in that wide receiver room, because like me and JJ were talking yesterday, and like I feel like all of them had a fairly solid game, and it even made the waters a little bit more murky when it comes to like, all right, what guys have a position in there, what guys are still on the bubble, like what guys or guy may have solidified themselves. Like it's definitely made that wide receiver room a little bit more shaky, because I think that those guys bring a different thing to the table in their own perspective. And all in all, I mean, like it's good for the team. So I would hate to be a part of that coaching staff and having to make those decisions, just because all of those guys have shown pop and flash throughout the offseason and throughout that game Thursday.
Look at, even John Mechie, Jimmy Horn Jr., who Could have had that easy touchdown there. A tough
Yeah.
throw there by Haynes King. That definitely would have he helped his stat sheet and helped his case, but still he made a lot of plays as well. But I think, just looking at the room, it's more than likely they'll keep 7 guys. And I think at this point, it comes down to Mechie and Horn. Which one of those 2 guys is going to continue to rise over these next 3 games. It's very crucial for both guys. We saw them in the return game as well, handling kickoff and punt returns too. So it's going to be quite the race between 13 and 15 these next 3 weeks. Those are going to be 2 guys that I'll have a very close eye on. I'll be back in practice in the morning, so I'm looking forward to seeing just those 2 guys kind of make the most of this opportunity they have, because I think, when it all comes down to that cut day, which I believe is August 30th, when it comes to the 7th guy that they keep, I think it's going to come down to one of those 2.
That's interesting. It seems like you have something to say, JJ, but I just that's interesting that you say it comes down to Mechie and Horn. I'm just curious, do you not think maybe a Bryson Tremaine? I heard how you feel about Jasim Reed, and I agree as well there, but do you not feel like a guy like Casey Washington, Bryson Tremaine, and also Jasim Reed are also in that same conversation, or do you truly feel like it's going to come down to a Jimmy Horn and a John Mechie?
I feel like it'll ultimately, come down to those 2 guys. I think especially when you look at, a David Moore, Bryson Tremaine, the value that they have on special teams, whether it's going down and making a tackle on special teams, going down and covering a punt or a kickoff. I think what we've seen, them do over the last couple of years, and you can't, understate Bryson Tremaine and him blocking in the run game. We saw that a lot last year at Dave Canales, and the offensive staff really raved about his ability there. So I think with them being able to kind of do a little bit of that dirty work, so to speak, I think that's what helps their case. And, at this point, in my opinion, would solidify them on the roster, where you look at guys like Mechie and Jimmy, maybe not that kind of versatility when it comes to, doing the dirty work, whether it's blocking or special teams. They kind of have that speed and that quickness that you want to see in the return game and out of your, slot or more shifty guys. So I think that's why, in my opinion, I think it would come down to the 2 of them because of the value that a David and a Bryson bring when it comes to, those core 4 special teams, punt return, kickoff, and kickoff return as well.
Sure, Gabe. You mentioned something earlier just about J.C. Horn and the reps that he's getting at slot. Now I know that that's been a conversation that we've heard kind of throughout the summer, just about getting him those additional reps at that position, and he's spoken about kind of just the adjustment and things like that. Based on what we've been seeing, and of course this is from an outsider's perspective, we don't have access to camp, we don't have access to practice, so a lot of the news and information that we're getting is coming from people like yourself, Joe, Sheena, Vashti, Alex, etc. What do you make of Will Lee? I've been on record a couple of times. Me and Terrence had quite a heated debate, so to speak, about Will Lee yesterday, and not necessarily just Will Lee, but just kind of the defense in general. But it seems like he's getting a lot of those additional outside reps that come with J.C. Horn moving around a little bit in the defensive backfield. So what do you make of Will Lee? What's going on with, Corey Thornton? Because he's a guy that, for me personally, I'm a fan of his game. I thought he made a significant amount of progress last year. And I actually have been on record in saying that should Mike Jackson leave this offseason, that I believe that Corey Thornton was going to be the guy that the Carolina Panthers, entrusted with the role of potentially taking the outside opposite of J.C. Horn. But it seems as though they have other plans. So kind of give me your breakdown a little bit on that defensive backfield and just some of the things that you're seeing.
Yeah, first off, starting with Will, I think everybody's going to look at that one play, the double move there, obviously, on Thursday night. A tough play. You never want to see that. It's a rookie mistake. It's a growing pain. And I think it's one thing that he'll, obviously learn from too. But I think you're seeing a guy that really plays well, at the line of scrimmage. He's kind of, being tested with, Coker, or whether it's T-Mac on the outside too. And I think they've gotten the best of him sometimes, but there's been other times where he's been able to lock things down as well. Just looking at some of the reps that he's had in 11-on-11, some of the different one-on-one reps that he's had over the last few days when they've been in pads and doing those one-on-ones. I think it's a guy with a lot of room to grow. Obviously, it seems like he's been picking up things relatively quickly. That's where they're trusting him, with those reps, with the ones in 11-on-11. But I think, having JC moving in the slot. I think that's going to unlock possibly a new, level to this defense. Having a guy that, because as we saw last year, there would be certain times where teams would know that he's going to stick to just one side of the field. He usually would be in the boundary. And it's like now, if you're able, and other teams would put their top guys, whether it's in the slot or they would put them in the field. And Mike Jack would obviously hold his things down too. But, when you have a back-to-back Pro Bowler in J.C. Horn, you kind of want to see him guarding team's best guys. But I think he's a guy that when you look at, him being able to move into the slot, I think that can unlock really just a different part of his defense and really kind of, help them take another step too. And even when you look at the safety room, I mean, that's a room where you see, Zachy Wheatley kind of made a lot of good plays from depth there in the Hall of Fame game as well. Nick Scott still slated as the starter of that spot. I know everybody has their opinions on his game. We can spend all day talking about
that's my co-host. That's one of his favorite players.
Look at Trayvon Merrick and Lathan Ransom. I think it's still a solid secondary, but I think it's one of those things too where we could see a lot of those guys on the field a lot more, and I think that speaks to the lack of depth there at linebacker, which we now know that there's a competition there at LB2, which we alluded to earlier with Trevin Wallace and Claude Sherless. But I think just looking at the secondary, Will Lee, still a lot of room to grow, but I like where he's been at right now, because if that's a guy that you kind of bring in some of those different, nickel packages or sort of big nickel packages, and you allow JC to slide there into the slot and guard another team's, top guy, if that's the mismatch that they want, I think that can really help this defense take another level for sure.
For sure. And if you don't mind, just dive into that linebacker matchup a little bit more. This was today, I think it was the first time that we actually heard confirmation that there actually was a battle for that linebacker 2 position. I know, obviously, the Carolina Panthers took a chance on Trevin Wallace, a couple of years back, and just up to this point, it doesn't seem as though he's developed into the point in which they want him to develop. And that to me is abundantly clear. But just touch a little bit on that, because I know that probably came to a shock to a couple of people, even seeing him being rolled out on Thursday night for the Hall of Fame game after Canales, let the media know that pretty much the people that were going to be playing on Thursday were going to be fringe guys that are on the bubble, and guys that are competing for their starting job.
Yeah, I think, just looking at Trevin, there were certain plays, going back and watching the All-22, certain plays where he just looked lost at times in coverage and, trying to get off blocks. He struggled in, that aspect as well. And you would, think by the time we got to year 3, of course, he had to grow up fast there his rookie year. When you think about the injuries to Shaq Thompson and Josie Jewell there, he really had to kind of, step up rather quickly. It was kind of sink or swim. There were some good moments. There were some not so good moments, even throughout last year, as he had that starting role opposite of Christian Roseman. But you would hope by now, year 3, multiple years in the system, multiple games played in the system, that he would have, made a lot of progress by now to where there wouldn't be a competition with, an undrafted guy that, even though Claude Sherless has had some bright spots as well, you look at last year in the Falcons game, there were a couple other games as well that he had to come in and he really stepped up and held his own. And people forget that's another guy that had an extra year in the system. He was here in 2023, during that season. So that's, looking at the 23 season, he was kind of a depth piece, even the last couple of years as well. So I think that's something that could even give him a leg up. EJ and, those coaches, Coach Hansen, they trust him as a guy that's been around for a while to be able to handle the communication, handle a lot of the checks and different reads. Because I think, they're looking at potentially, obviously Devin Lloyd would be wearing the green dot, but I think it's one of those things where, you would hope that Trevin would be ready by now. But, there's obviously a lot of talk about that draft class at this moment and how certain guys haven't necessarily panned out. And, you would hope that Trevin would have been one of them. You saw the raw athleticism, but it just really hasn't translated to, putting together things as a complete linebacker to where, now he's in a position where he's fighting for his job and likely his livelihood in the NFL, at least for the moment.
Yeah, it also doesn't help that he has an injury history as well. So that plays a big part. Hasn't been able to stay on the field. So,
yeah, and I've said multiple times just across this platform, and a couple of different ones that I've gone on. For me personally, I like Claude and Sherless play style because it mirrors that of a more traditional linebacker to me. He's a guy that's going to come downhill and he's going to smack you in the mouth. That's just for me. Yeah. Yes, 1,000%. For me personally, that's how I like my linebackers. That's what I grew up on seeing. You know what I'm saying? So I'm excited. I'm excited for that matchup. It seems like, that's added a whole totally different dynamic to what we're going to get in kind of some of the matchups that we're looking at to go along with the running back 3 matchup and some return duties, wide receiver, etc. So I'm super excited for that. And heading forward, I am. I
The
think
more
that Claw's going to get it done.
battles you can have, especially at key spots, just it's going to raise everybody's level of competition around them because everybody's going to know like you got two guys that are fighting their ass off to try and stay around and stay in the lineup as well. So I think seeing that, especially at key spots like linebacker too, like the returner spots in different places too, it's going to elevate everybody around them, and ultimately it's going to just create even more excitement for us to talk about during camp too.
For sure. Now with that, I mean, we look. You mentioned that draft class from a couple of years ago, and then you just kind of see some of the decisions made this past April. For me personally, and I want to get your opinion on this. For me personally, it gives me a bit of cause for pause because if you knew that there was a possibility, right? Because we have at this point we have 2 years of film on Trevin Wallace, right? And from a fan perspective, unfortunately, if we're talking about a linebacker at the NFL level, he just doesn't provide you with what you need and or want from an NFL linebacker, and specifically from a starting position. Do you question at all? And I mean, you can get into this as much as you want. But do you question at all some of the approaches around April when it comes to draft time and the amount that they've decided to invest on the offensive side of the ball when you look at the past couple of years, specifically? Like, obviously, I know you went and got Kawach, you went and got what's my man, Will Lee, right? Yeah. But there was also in the 3rd and 4th round, you had an opportunity to get multiple linebackers. I think in the 3rd round is when we saw that run on linebackers. And obviously, I know that you went out and you got Devin Lloyd, so you added that talent, all-pro talent. But also, you knew that there was somebody that was going to have to go beside him, and you knew that at that point, Christian Roseboom was gone, who I never really trusted at all either. Like, linebacker for me has been a problem. So, do you kind of question or does it give you pause for their approach when it comes to the draft and just their commitment to their investment on the defensive side of the ball as it pertains to younger talent?
I would think so, especially when you think at, obviously you go back a couple of years ago, Peyton Wilson was right there, Buckets Award winner. No, he obviously had his injury history at NC State, but that's a guy now that's getting a lot of buzz up there in Pittsburgh, and it's like you could have had him. Now, obviously, hindsight's of course 2020, but just looking at this year, I know he wanted to address the interior on the D-line because it seems like before the news came out that they knew something would be up with Turk. Obviously, you lose A'Shawn Robinson, who's now in Tampa, along with Christian Roseboom. So I understand the need to want to address the interior. And then you've even had more of a shakeup there with LeBron Ray's retirement. And it seemed, and then Bobby Brown entered camp with an injury. And now Derek Brown's dealing with knee soreness. Like, I don't know, it's tough talking about it. Let me knock on some wood real quick and make sure nothing else happens. But I think just looking at the draft earlier this year, you had opportunities there. I understand there were certain positions of need. Even seeing, going back and seeing Dan Morgan's reaction when they got Chris Brazzell there in the 3rd round, he was very surprised. And I think you would think that a guy that obviously poured his heart and soul into this franchise as a player is doing the same thing now as a general manager, that he would recognize a need and see like, okay, a guy like Trevin, yeah, you have the raw athletic ability, but still you want to have somebody alongside Devin Lloyd, whether that's going out and getting an additional free agent, because obviously a guy like Jackson Kawach, who looked solid the other night, he's coming in as a special teamer in the 7th round. There should have been more of an emphasis, I believe, on trying to pair somebody, with a Devin Lloyd that you feel like can come in right away, not necessarily be in the competition for his job, and that way you feel better about that level of the defense, which we really haven't had. I mean, just since, we only got to see it for a little bit, but Shaq and Frankie was really our last solid duo, honestly, around here. So I think that's
facts.
And you look at, and obviously, you let Frankie walk after that 23 season too. So I think that's one of those things where we know the lineage of that position here, late great Sam Mills. You look at obviously Dan and John Beeson, and of course now Luke and everybody in TD. It's like, you want that position to be as strong as possible because that's the heart and soul there of your defense. And I think, there should have been more of an emphasis to address that position, I think, when, that run happened, like you mentioned, they're in the third round, JJ. So we'll see how things pan out. But this competition is going to be something to watch for sure.
Most definitely. And you mentioned a name there that I'm actually intrigued about. This is a running thing on this show as well, stemming from last summer. Shaq Thompson. There's been a couple of fans on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen it. A couple of fans making the pitch for him to come back home. Do you think that is a possibility for the Carolina Panthers, and would it make sense at this point in the summer?
It would make sense. I don't know if it happens though. I know he still wants to play somewhere. He showed, he was relatively solid there in Buffalo last year. I honestly thought they would have tried to find a way to keep him around up there. But I just, at this point, obviously anything can happen. We saw, you go back to 24, the trade there for Mike Jack for Michael Barrett, I think was about maybe at this point in the preseason or somewhere a little bit earlier, maybe before training camp started. But it would be a great reunion. I think right away he could come in and provide a boost. Dan will keep the phone open. He'll keep the lines open. At this current moment, I just don't see it being a reality. I know a lot of fans. I know everybody would enjoy having him back around. Me personally, great guy to talk to in the locker room. Really enjoy getting to know him. I got here before the 22 season, so I had a few years there, being around covering him. Would be quite the reunion. Realistically, I don't see it in the cards, at least at this moment. And, I'm sure for everybody's sake, hopefully I'm wrong in a week or a couple of weeks or whenever it may happen, if it does happen. But at this current moment, I just don't see it being a reality.
JJ would love that.
Oh, yes, I would. I would love that. I would have loved if they would have never let Frankie walk in 2023.
Yeah, they should have found a way for him to only get, I believe, what was it, $12 million from Washington. They could have found a way to make that happen. I think he was a guy that, you saw the juice that he brought. Once he finally got that opportunity to start, he was so fun to watch, man, and so fun to cover. They should have found a way, in my opinion, to match Washington's offer. For whatever reason, they let him walk. It's unfortunate, but he's a guy that definitely could have, been a big boost to this defense the last couple of years if he would have still been here.
I agree. I totally agree. I only have one more. Terrence, I don't know what you have, but I have one more just to kind of wrap up my line of questioning, so to speak. Has there been anybody? Because listen, I'll be honest with you, Gabe. And again, you don't have to comment. You don't have to say anything. If you want me to go full screen, I'll go full screen just so we don't even have to see your facial reactions. But I've been on record multiple times on this platform, as well as others, that I feel as though at times this coaching staff and at times this front office has a problem with player evaluation and talent evaluation. And I don't know if it's necessarily as much of a player evaluation as much as it is a player loyalty, this sense of loyalty. Like we see it, we've seen it the past couple of years when you look at David Moore and his ability to just stick around. And that's no shot at him at all. But you'll get a lot of people that feel as though there was a receiver or two that could have potentially made the roster over him last year and the year prior. You look at the matchup between Austin Corbett and Cade Mays over the past few years. I personally have, under the belief that Cade Mays outplayed and displayed a little bit more throughout training camp 2 years ago when I was able to be there. But yeah, Austin Corbett still got the nod. And I feel as though we're running into that same issue, or we're towing the line relatively, so to speak, with this running back matchup. Now, I know that Trevor Etienne over the past year or so has been the primary return man for the Carolina Panthers. But for me personally, it's not enough. There's not enough juice back there with him specifically for him to take up a roster spot when you have a guy like an A.J. Dillon. So I say all of that to say and to ask you, has there been anybody at all in the return game that has stuck out to you that you feel as though could potentially overtake Trevor Etienne as the primary kick and punt returner?
I think just going back to, what we saw Thursday night, John Mechie had a really nice return there. I believe it was before Haynes' first drive or maybe Kenny's second drive, but had a really nice return there, solid blocking up front as well. I think, he's a guy where you look at, obviously, quite the journey for him too, coming from Bama, dealing with everything that he did with, leukemia and the injuries and everything, quite a comeback story and a guy that you want to root for too. And I think he's a guy that brought a lot of juice. Now, obviously, it's just a Hall of Fame game. We want to see, obviously some more reps over these next few weeks, because really special teams is one of those things where we're not, at least in practice, we're not able to really see it, live, so to speak. Like it's one of they're not setting up full returns like you would see in a game. So it's kind of tough to judge from practice. But just looking at the sample size that we had on Thursday, I think Mechie really, brought a lot of juice and a lot of pop, and a guy that can, make some moves and make a guy miss. And, I think the return game is one of those things where we just really haven't seen a lot out of it, honestly, the last, several years for this team, as far as, long returns, being able to kind of flip the field, so to speak, and put your offense in a good position, to have a short field and get a drive going. So I think, like we talked about earlier, when it comes to that last receiver spot, I think it's really imperative, not just, their contributions on offense, but for Jimmy and John to both, take this returning thing seriously, because I think if they continue to grow and continue to show enough, they're not going to have a choice but to put one of them on the field. The shiftiness, the quickness that both of those guys have, you don't want to have that, on the sideline in a jumpsuit on Sundays, if they end up on the practice squad. They need to be in a helmet, in uniform, because those two guys, they can be game changers when given the opportunity. And I think those are really the main two guys that I'm looking at. But John specifically at this moment, just after what he showed on a Thursday night.
I just have one additional question, because I'm sure this is going to put a lot of comments and ideologies to rest. And I know Chris Brazel's stint was very short. He didn't have a full training camp, obviously, with the injury. Is there something that you've seen, like a lot of fans speculated, the way that he was performing with the short time he had during training camp and the way that the coaching staff was raving about him as well, along with the media attention that he was getting? Do you think that there was a actual possibility that he could have came in and overtook that wide receiver 3 spot? And I guess along with that, I know they were talking about trying to move T-Mac around in the slot as well. Do you think that that's still a possibility now that Chris Brazel, the receiver that they bought in, that would be able to stretch the field, getting over top of the safeties in the corners with his speed and his size? Do you think that that's something we'll still see from T-Mac going into the slot, or is it kind of like we don't really have that personnel for that anymore?
I think we'll still see it, because we saw a solid amount of it last year, at least towards the end of the season. I think, the snaps, I want to say there was one game where, the snaps or the production from the slot and outside, mirrored each other. I believe it might have been the Atlanta game, if I'm not mistaken, the one in Atlanta, where the kind of slot and outside snaps and production mirrored each other. I think we still see it, even with a guy like Leggett as a big body on the outside, and Coker as well, against, some corners that may not have that size. And I think, you put T-Mac with his size, and I mean, seeing him at practice, that dude did a heck of a job in the offseason, adding weight, still has the speed and the shiftiness. I mean, he looks completely different compared to his rookie year. And I just, we were talking earlier just in the office before the show. I think it's going to be relatively easy. If everything goes as planned, he'll have at least 1,510 touchdowns. This is our opinion here at, Carolina Sports Live. But I think we'll still see that out of T-Mac, because the coaches know that they can create a mismatch. Now, as far as, Leggett still being on the outside, there's still some benefits to it. I know a lot of people want to see him, turn the corner this year. I mean, this is pretty much the year for him to do it. Their time is kind of ticking. It's already year 3. And I think, to seeing him now, I know he dealt with the Singer for a little bit. He's still looking, relatively solid from, the little bit that we did see him the past couple of days when I've been at practice. But I still think we'll see a good amount of T-Mac in the slot, just because this staff know. And you got to think about it. Brad's going to try to add a lot of new wrinkles, add his own, flair to the offense. And I'm sure that's something that he definitely still wants to see, because the production that he has there and, the mismatches that it could create, whether it's going against, smaller slot corners or linebackers, it's something that he'll definitely be able to take advantage of. So, Terrence, to your point, I think we'll still see a healthy amount of T-Mac in the slot this year, because that can also help this offense, just unlock a different level too.
1,500, Gabe?
Yeah.
It's feeling like that?
I think 1,510 at the very least. I think he's a guy that's the production that you should want. I mean, you got to think about it too. He missed a game or two last year, just one game, I believe.
Yes.
So you think
and
about
didn't have Coker.
Yeah, and you think about some of the more quiet games that he had. I mean, if you're seeing the usual T-Mac that we saw, whether it be the Cardinals game or the game in Atlanta, if we're seeing that on a week-to-week consistent basis, especially with the trust that him and Bryce have with each other, I don't think it'll be hard to put up those kind of numbers this year over a full 17 games.
I'm not mad at it. I would love to see it. And I say that, but that's kind of something that you would like to expect from your true wide receiver one, especially since we haven't had one of those.
Year, I mean, going from the numbers he had last year, you would think 1,500 is a pretty, decent mark to get to going off the numbers that he put up last year.
Well, he had a few drops in there too, so and I'm sure he cleaned that up. Like that would have at least been an extra 100 yards, 150 yards, maybe. So
1,000%. And he ended up with what, like 1023 or something last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, somewhere around there, a little bit higher than obviously Kelvin to break the record.
Yeah, understood. Well, Gabe, before we let you go, I want to do something. You don't have to do it. You can turn it down. I want to do a rapid fire, just wins, loss, way too early schedule prediction for the Panthers. Are you down?
All right, let's ride.
Okay, cool. Here we go. Y'all don't quote Gabe. Don't do anything like that. It's just for fun, man.
Don't shoot the messenger, folks. and now I got to jog my memory on the injuries a lot of these teams have had around the league, too. I know the Bears are kind of beat up. I know that's what we got right off the bat.
Yeah, that's where we'll get started. What do you got for the Bears week 1 at home?
I know it's going to be quite the quarterback matchup, but with the injuries that they have in their secondary on the defense, I think the Panthers avoid a slow start. September's been tough. 2-6 in the month of September the last 2 years. I believe they get off on the right track. And for the first time since 2021, the Panthers will start the season with a win, in my opinion.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Week 2 on the road against Atlanta.
We usually know how that goes. If 9 is on point, I think that should be. And you got to think about the situation with their defense as well, with the edge rushers. Unfortunate with obviously Jalen Walker. Then James Pierce had his deal, and likely the suspension, I think, officially should be coming down. So we know games in the ATL normally favor the black and blue. So I think we got a 2-0 start to begin the year.
Okay. I like the way you're talking. So far. On the road against Cleveland, Deshaun Watson and co.
Myles Garrett ain't there no more. I know they still got some talent as well. I'm going to be a bit bullish to start 3-0 to begin September.
Okay. For whatever it's worth, I have that potentially being a trap game for the Panthers, but we'll keep moving. Week 4, Sunday Night Football in the crib at the bank.
Going to be a tough one. Obviously, Detroit has been a relatively consistent team. I know there's going to be a lot of hype playing in prime time at home, first Sunday Night Football game in quite some time, but I think they get brought back down to earth a little bit. I think that one is the L to send them into the bye. So I think 3-1 going into the bye, a tough loss. It'll be a tight one, but I think Detroit will likely come out on top in the Sunday Night Football.
For whatever it's worth, we'll 100% take a 3-1 start. I'm not mad at that. Coming back off the bye, Philly on the road.
That's going to be a tough one. I know you'll have 2 weeks to prepare. Tough place to play. Philly still been a relatively consistent team. I think going on the road, I'm predicting an L on that one. So 3-2 through those first 5.
Okay, 3-2 through the first 5, and then we head back home against Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay, it's a bit of a toss-up. You got obviously it's a divisional matchup. Baker wants his bread. How pissed off is he going to be? Is he going to be somewhat careless with the ball? Is Vita Vea still going to be there? Mike Evans, of course, not there anymore. We know he's been a thorn in the secondary side. I think being at home, I would give Carolina a close win in that one being at home.
Okay.
They'll have a sour taste in their mouth after Philly, and I think they'll respond.
Cool. And then a short week on the road against Green Bay Thursday night.
That's going to be a tough one. The travel. No, they went up to Lambeau last year, but you got a fully healthy. You got a pretty much predominantly healthy squad up there going on the road on a short week. I think that's an L for them. So I believe 4-3 at that point.
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Yeah.
Denver at home. It's another really. I mean, the schedule gets a lot tougher. It gets a lot tougher.
Team that was just in the AFC Championship game a year ago. Sean Payton, obviously a wizard offensively on that side of the ball. Denver still going to be poised to be a threat this year in the AFC. I think that one's an L as well.
Okay. New Orleans at home. New Orleans and New Orleans. My apologies.
Gotcha. So we're 4-4 right now?
4-4 right now.
4-4, going to the Big Easy. Tyler Shuck. What kind of Tyler Shuck did we see over a full season? We know he kind of had his breakout games, honestly, both of them, against Carolina. Dome's a tough place to play. Panthers haven't won there since the 22 season finale. I was at that game. I think that is an L as well, going on the road.
Interesting. For whatever it's worth, again.
We'll be there. That ain't good. We'll be there.
That isn't good. That isn't good. And we do a road game experience every week, as you heard me mention to start the show.
Oh, yeah.
And last week.
So that's always a game they try to send me down to cover. So,
okay, got you. Yeah,
that's always a fun one to go to.
We went to Arizona last year, and it didn't turn out well, obviously.
It was close. You don't spot them 10 points, that game goes a different way.
It does.
It also goes a different way if Kyler Murray doesn't try to be Superman and throw that pick either. So
very true. Very true. Very true. Okay. Let me see.
We're 4-5 right now.
We're 4-5 right now. 4-5. Back home against the Baltimore Ravens. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, that defense. Another tough one.
That first time playing Lamar, I believe, since 22 as well. Yeah, at home, even though they'll be at home, I feel like that could be a trap game for Baltimore, depending on what they got coming in. I haven't looked too much into their schedule, but still with Baltimore, with Lamar and Derrick and that defense now, and having Hendrickson, I think that's 4-6 for Carolina at that point.
Well, Nate Wiggins got carted off today.
He did.
Okay.
Yeah.
No structural damage, but he did get carted off today.
Gotcha.
Tampa Bay on the road. So Gabe, you have us winning. You have us winning less than 7 games. I feel it in my body, but I'm going to let you finish it off.
I think going on the road, another primetime matchup. I think unlike last year, I think they come out on the right side of this one. I think they'll get this one in Tampa.
Okay.
Because they'll need a wake up call at that point, and with a divisional opponent, I think that'd be the perfect time to have it after a tough skid.
Understood. Off of that one, we go on the road in the cold to Minnesota. They just announced today that Kyler Murray would be their starting quarterback for the season.
That one I can see being a win. Not too much really worries me about Minnesota at this point. Now, can Kevin O'Connell get Kyler back on track like he did Sam Darnold? Maybe. Obviously, you still have Justin Jefferson. But outside of that, I'm not necessarily too worried about. I think that should be a win on the road for Carolina.
I would agree. And then you have the Saints in the bank December 13th.
Coming back home, they'll want some revenge. That's another Carolina dub. So I think 3 straight for them.
Okay.
After that tough skid.
Yep. And then this is where things get very interesting again. Jamar Chase and company. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, rather, should I say.
Yeah.
Be respectful when I say that. Back home, back-to-back, second game of a back-to-back against Cincinnati.
That one, I still don't believe in Cincy's defense. But if it turns into a shootout, can Carolina keep up? That's the question. Because we know that offense can put up points unlike anybody. But I still think there's going to be ways for the Panthers to take advantage of their defense. I think both teams will probably get into the 30s, but I think Carolina finds a way to get it done.
Okay. Interesting. Now, really, truly in the cold, 2 days after Christmas against Pittsburgh on the road, Heinz Field or whatever they call it now. I don't know. I think they changed the names. They changed the name now. On the road against Pittsburgh.
That's gonna be one of those games where I think you look at Pittsburgh. Obviously, it's an interesting situation there. With McCarthy now, Aaron Rodgers, of course, getting up there. But I still think it's a really tough place to play. Depending on where Pittsburgh is at that point, could make a difference. But I still think that's one that the Steelers ultimately win at home.
Okay. All right. And then Seattle. I have PTSD regarding this matchup because I was in attendance for the game last year.
Yeah.
I have PTSD with this offense, but Seattle, week 17.
I think that's another Seattle win. I just think coming off last year, still got quite the roster. They're going to be right in the mix again. I think it's a similar result to what we saw this past year.
Fair enough. And then we close the season off against the Atlanta Falcons at home.
At home?
At home.
They'll finish things off with the win there.
Okay. All right. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, Gabe. You had me a little bit nervous. But I feel like that's fair. I had you finishing 9-8.
Okay.
So I mean, I think that's
improvement from last year.
Yeah, yes. Pretty much on target.
There's been a lot of talk about just the injuries. I know they're tough, but I still think this team has the right amount of depth in certain places to where they'll be able to overcome that. So I think obviously, everybody wanted to see Nick Gordon take that leap in year 2. Everybody wanted to see what Brazel could bring to this offense with the downfield ability, but there's still a healthy amount of talent on this roster, even with playing a first place schedule, to where I think, they can find a way to navigate this division, and 9-8 should be good enough to win this division, as we've seen over the last several years. I believe that'll be good enough for them to make it back-to-back winning the NFC South.
For sure. I think our floor is 8 and our ceiling is 11. And I think just for the overwhelming majority of the fan base that I've spoken to, at least, that's kind of where it seems the consensus is. Yeah. Quick question, and then we'll let you run because I know you have to get prepped for the show. Does 9-8 get Bryce Young that deal that he's looking for? Or should I should word it better? What amount, and you can give me a range, what amount does 9-8 get Bryce Young heading into year 5? Because we assume they want to have a contract done, right?
For sure. No, you want to get something done before next season starts. I think that record, if you're seeing more steady growth building on the stats that he had last year, I think the main thing for him, limiting the turnovers, especially in the first half of games. That's something.
Yes, sir.
Especially when you look at, the Jacksonville game, what was it, 3 turnovers, they turn them into points. We talked about the Cardinals game last year that we all went to. They had the scoop and score, then you come back and throw a pick. Like, you can't spot teams 10, 17 points and put yourself in a hole, every single time. Those comebacks like they had against Miami, you're not going to be able to do that every week. If Miami could run the ball worth a damn, they would have been able to win that game last year. So I think when you look, I think a 9-8 record, if you see about, you want to see him get to at least, I would say maybe like at least 3,500 yards at the very least, somewhere around there, in the mid 20s, maybe close to 30 with the touchdowns. You really want to keep the picks under. You'd like to keep the picks under 10 if you can, in my opinion. Anything more than that, kind of teetering a little bit. But I think amount-wise, we've kind of seen, the baseline for QBs, especially rookie quarterbacks getting that extension. We've kind of seen, like, I would say, I kind of refer to Daniel Jones when he got his deal. Like, $40 million is kind of like the baseline, the absolute bottom for a rookie quarterback getting that extension. Anything around there, I would say you're probably looking at, I would say about 35 to like 42 a year, somewhere in there. I mean, that's pretty much starting quarterback money now, as far as like rookies, coming off, like, unless you're like a top end guy, like we saw, he's no Josh Allen, Burrow, guys that have gotten those kind of extensions. Solid. You still want to see a lot of growth. There's still room for growth, but I would say if we're talking money wise, about 35 to 42 is kind of what I would think, somewhere in there. I think is a fair amount. Now, if he comes out boasting out of the water, throws 4K and 30 touchdowns and 5 picks, and this team wins 11 games like he had as the ceiling, then he's probably going to have a little bit more to bring to the negotiating table. But I think if you're seeing a little bit of growth, not necessarily exponential, I would say about 35 to 42. But luckily, I'm not Brant Tillerson, the one that has to write up this contract.
For sure. That's about where we kind of have him too.
Yeah,
I would say 35 to 42. I feel like that's fair. So a lot of people that's been throwing that 50 number around, and that makes me very, 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 very uncomfortable.
I don't think it gets to that point unless he's like putting up Drew Brees 2011 numbers, throwing for 5K, which I don't think is really even a possibility just in this offense with how much they want to run the ball. And
agreed.
So I think 50 is kind of pushing it a little bit. I think at most probably about 45 in my personal opinion.
Fair enough. Terrence, you got anything else, or you good?
No, I'm good. I appreciate you for hopping on with us today, Gabe, and we appreciate your work as well. Continue to do what you do, providing that content, bringing us news from the inside of the training camp that we can't necessarily see. So shout out to you. Continue to go up.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys for having me, man. Always love talking ball, and good to be back with you guys again. Definitely love the content in the show, and always glad to be joining you guys, man.
Man,
Sure.
Appreciate that. Before you head out, let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, on Instagram at Gabe McDonald _ pretty much both the socials are the same. X, Twitter, whatever the kids call it now. Just Gabe McDonald _ on both of those. Trying to get the TikTok going a little bit too with the certain content as well. So I kind of am dabbling into it a little bit, but mainly IG and Twitter. But yeah, at Gabe McDonald _ and of course Carolina Sports Live, Queen City News every night at 11 o'clock. We'll be going on in a couple of hours, talking Brad Idzik, kind of getting into his flow as a play caller. Obviously, the linebacker competition between Trevin Wallace and Claude Cherilus, and all the latest and greatest headlines before we get back to practice tomorrow. 2 more days of work, off on Friday. They travel to Buffalo, and then the game coming up on Saturday. But yeah, CSL on QCN is our show's Twitter, my personal Twitter and Instagram at Gabe McDonald _ CSL coming your way on Queen City News every night at 11 o'clock.
My guy, Gabe, thank you so much, man. We appreciate it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys, man. Y'all take it easy.
Yeah, have a good one.
You too. What's up, little bro?
I mean, that doesn't meet that criteria.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Not this time.
Not
this
the
time.
same.
It doesn't. You're right. Cool. That's great insight. If you guys don't follow Gabe, let me pull up his let me actually pull up his Twitter real quick, because he does a lot of great work, man, and he is a guy for me personally that when we're unable to be at camp, this is a must follow. He's a must follow. If you're tuned in via the Carolina Panthers space and news, and you're not able to be at training camp like none of us are, this is the guy that you need to follow right here, because he gives us the insights, and he does his breakdowns every day. He does the 11-on-11 matchup. So when you guys see us pull up that note sometimes, and we look at that as a reference point, this is who is providing that for us. So shout out to Gabe. Definitely appreciate him joining us tonight.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've seen Black talking about joint practice. I think we have an upcoming joint practice, Black.
Yeah,
pretty sure. I forgot who was with Jacksonville.
Yes, we have one coming up next week against Jacksonville, August 18th, I believe. So next Tuesday is the date on that, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, don't fret. We have that one on August 18th, and then I'm not sure what the official date on the Houston Texans joint practice is, but it's coming. And we're gonna have some other guests come on as well that are going to be attending those joint practices that are able to give us some insight kind of on how things go, because we know the propaganda be real. The propaganda be real, and we need that real. And this is a place for people to give it up very, very real and give us the real information on what we're looking to see. What were you
Yeah.
about to say?
Our joint practice is August 19th with Jacksonville, and then for the Houston Texans is August 26th.
There you go. There you go. Round of applause. Appreciate the super chat. Rod, take a shot. Oh no, this is not a super chat. This is a super sticker. 440 joules. We had to take that off. I don't know how it got turned on. I don't know how it got turned on with the stickers and the joules and the and you know all of the additional shit. I like seeing what's going on. I don't know what 440 joules are. They gave me the conversion the other day, but I was faded. I was drunk as hell on stream. I was probably about 5 or 6 shot o'clocks deep within the first 27, 30 minutes of the show.
Yeah, I
So
doubt it.
I just don't remember the conversion.
That seems like a fluctuated number for whatever it's worth.
I mean, well, the people were here. The people were here, so they'll be able to tell you what it was. I don't know. Maybe it was. You know, time gets to moving slower or faster when you're off that. Yeah. So I don't know.
Right.
Chat. I don't have anything else for y'all tonight. Terrence, I did everything in my power. I said we would go an hour. We went 101. It's saying 106 because of it's saying 106 because of the intro, the 5-minute intro countdown. But 101, you should say, hey JJ, that was great work, bro. Like, that's a hell of a job. That's what you should say, but I know that you won't say it, but that's really okay. What you should say.
As long as we have that understanding. Okay. Got you.
Ron, I don't have the thing about it is you get on stream when I'm not drinking. Like, you know that I don't drink that much. You know that I don't
drink water. Take a shot of water.
I don't have anything. I don't have anything near me. I have no liquid near me at all. So yeah, you get on stream when I'm not drinking, but then when I am drinking, you're MIA, nowhere to be found. So I mean, you take a shot for me. You take a shot for me, and maybe we'll take one together this weekend. If I can get free and pull up. Do you have anything else for the people?
I have nothing else. I guess we'll see y'all Friday.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, and this is going to be growth and maturation from me. This is going to be growth and maturation from me. And if you don't receive it like that, I mean, fuck you. I don't know what.
Who is that directed to?
You.
Oh,
you.
Me. Okay. Well, I already don't like the way it started off. Like, how you want to tell me, like, if I don't receive it as growth and maturation, then it's F me. Like, that already ain't showing a sign of growth and maturation.
No, it is. This is what I'm going to say, because they clean me up. Pause. They clean me up in the comments from the episode that dropped this morning. And if you guys haven't taken a look at that episode that we released this morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time, well, first and foremost, before we even get there, like, comment, subscribe, turn the bell notification on so you can be notified when we drop our episodes. But we were back in studio, back to our regular schedule. And they got me out of here. They cleaned me up because I said that the defense was not or the offense was just as talented as the defensive side of the ball. And I had to admit that I sounded like a jackass when we were having that conversation. So I just wanted to come on here and tell you directly that you had a point. You had a point. But that doesn't negate the fact that they still should be, damn it, top 16 minimum.
I mean, regardless, that's a different conversation. But to say that the offense is as talented as the defense is asinine. It just is.
It was. I'm going to tell you, because you do this really keen thing where you like to make certain statements and then you'll add additional sauce on it. Like, because the conversation, which, you told me not to bring off the record shit to the platform, but also when you're manipulating the conversation and the stance that you were making, for me personally, it gets very difficult not to bring that because the whole time what you were really trying to do was shoot at EJ. And you know I'm not going.
Bro,
So,
what-
yeah,
what-
unfortunately, nigga, you
what?
did that, and then you started saying, oh, yeah, you started giving the offense excuses already. It's like, nigga, we're not even in the month of September yet, and the offense already has every reason why they shouldn't be successful or compete and execute at a high level. So
It's not
that was just
excuses.
frustrating for me.
I just simply laid out the facts that they have 2 starting tackles that are injured. They have a guy as a running back, second string running back, who we can really say he's only played a couple of snaps in the NFL. They have another guy that they drafted in the 3rd round that was supposed to be a big part of the offense that got injured. I mean, they have a new play caller. It's not an excuse. All of those things that I'm naming out are facts.
Okay. Whatever you say. That's all I'm gonna say.
But I appreciate the people in the comments that, that have my back.
That they wanted to fucking turn their back on me.
I mean, that's not them turning their back. That's them acknowledging the facts that were given.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. Let's watch this before we head out. Somebody brought up a good point. First and foremost, make sure to smash that like or that subscribe button and smash the like button too while you're at it. And if you want to if your finger just so happens to wander off into super chat land, hey, feel free to do that.
Don't start begging, bro. That's not what we do. Don't start begging.
Feel free to do that too. Let's spin this. It was a good question. I don't even know who asked it. I'll shout you out when the video.
Our backs were against the wall, and we needed to make a play.
14-14 tied. 2nd and goal from the 3-yard line.
He had checked the play at the line, so you just have an idea that the ball's going to come out quick. As soon as you get back in your drop, it's really about locating the ball.
To the Baja.
And then it just
It's a hell of a play.
That is a hell of a play.
Ball in your hands, finding a way to get into the end zone, just not being denied.
One man to beat. Devin Lloyd. What a year. Hey, man.
I mean, Devin Lloyd is he's been incredible in enforcing turnovers.
Purdy is going to float it from McCaffrey. Loose ball. Picked off by Devin Lloyd.
The number one determining factor of who wins the game is who wins the turnover battle.
Throws it and throws an interception. That's a 2-pick game. Devin Lloyd.
If you're the one that's causing those turnovers, like you're the one that's winning those games for your team.
What a play by Devin Lloyd. He takes it away.
The hell is this music?
Machine all year long.
He got crazy ball skills like the pick that he had against Indy.
Play fake. They got both picked off. They threw it to the middle of the field. And Devin Lloyd got up and picked it off. Devin Lloyd, yet another interception. How in the hell did he catch that ball?
I couldn't see the mesh. I couldn't see the quarterback. I could see anything. All I could see is the D-line and the O-lineman right in my face. And it was just all instincts, just get a little bit of depth. Ball's in the air, and it was so split second that I had to react.
Somehow reacts quick enough to make that interception.
Really, I feel like it was God telling me, hey, the ball's going to be in the air.
I thought I saw an angel of the Lord when I saw your hands come out of nowhere.
It probably was. I ain't gonna lie.
Oh, my God.
That was one of my favorite plays just because, I trusted it. I trusted my instincts, and I was able to react.
Shout out Devin Lloyd.
Literally. Verbatim. Shout out Devin Lloyd. No Limit, just to address this really quick. Unfortunately, we saw that EJ just quite simply doesn't know what to do with shit like that.
Well, and
and what? No, go ahead. Don't hold your tongue. Go ahead.
That's another problem, but
What's the problem? He doesn't like hybrid type niggas like that. Unfortunately, you can't fit in our scheme. You can't.
Yeah,
and let me ask you a question. Who does Jeremy Chin play for in the NFL right now?
The Raiders.
I don't know if that's true. I have to look at it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true. I know that he was there last year, but I don't know if that's true that he's still there. But yeah, unfortunately, he ain't really, he ain't all that as what we thought he was going to be and what he
plays for the Raiders.
Yeah, so
and he looked very good in that Commanders defense as well with Dan Quinn.
He did look really good in that defense. So yeah, I mean, yes, you have a specimen like Isaiah Simmons, the same way you had a specimen in Jeremy Chin. But I mean, Ejiro Evero showed you the year or two that he coached Jeremy Chin that he quite simply just doesn't know what the hell to do with that kind of talent. So
He's just not that advanced yet.
No, it's not necessarily that he's not that advanced yet. That it just doesn't fit his scheme and what he got going on.
Yeah, sure.
It's not that he's not that advanced. So let's not.
Well, all right. What one of his flaws?
Sure, I'll live with that a little bit more than he's not that advanced. Come on, we're talking about a guy.
Same thing. Same thing.
For multiple head coaching positions. So,
wow, JJ, there's been a lot of guys that interview, a lot of black guys specifically that interview for head coaching positions just to satisfy the Rooney Rule. That doesn't move me at all.
Fair enough. Buzz said Lewis still hurt. Yeah, he's still injured. Damian Lewis is still down. Actually, I need to see. Tomorrow, I need to see if we get a report on that because he's been down for a couple of days consecutively at this point. And at some point or another, it's going to start making me feel a bit uncomfortable. Not going to lie. We need to know how many days has Damian Lewis been down?
Well, the bright spot is Chandler Zavala played well in the Hall of Fame game.
Hey, shout out Chandler Zavala. I saw the little all 22 breakdown that bro did on Twitter. I don't know if it was on Twitter or Instagram, but I seen them 2 or 3 reps that he highlighted. He looked different. Now that is a guy. Now let me go ahead and say this. That is a guy, when you put that type film out there, that is a guy that I don't feel like I can beat. So I'll go ahead and say that and give him his credit in that regard. Which I know y'all didn't never really even believe that I could beat him initially anyway. But the way he was looking the other night, that looked like a nigga that he looks like he may be turning the corner. I'm not gonna lie. All right, that's all I got, man. We've done a lot of content over the last 24 hours. Like Terrence mentioned earlier, we will be back on Friday evening doing our game preview as well as our review of the next 2 days of camp. I think Wednesday and Thursday we have camp, so we'll go through a couple of things that occur in those practices. Hopefully we can get some one-on-one tape or highlight tape from Vashti or Sheena or the team, which I mean, that probably won't happen, but one of those 2 reporters, hopefully we get them from those 2 ladies, and we'll break down a couple of things just because I just kind of have fun just watching niggas get exposed. Thunder, actually.
Don't start, bro.
Thunder. Also, we receive messages from certain people, and then unofficial depth charts start coming out and rolling out, and then we see said people that we were contacted on behalf of sitting at 3rd and 4th string. You know, I digress. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn the bell notification on, and tap back in with us on Friday. Hey, if you missed it this morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time, go check out our most recent episode. We're officially back in the studio. So we're back at 9 a.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays, as well as the live streams sporadically throughout the week. So super excited to keep this thing going. We're about, 4 weeks away now from the start of the NFL season. So the time is here. We've ramped up a little bit, so make sure to tap in with us. Join the Discord so you can stay up to date on what we have going on. Visit us at our website, www.4panthersfansonly.com. Like, comment, subscribe, turn the bell notification on. Again, we will be back on Friday, and we'll talk to y'all then. Peace.